Okay, this is my third time recording this video because I can't get my thoughts straight. So you saw the title of the video. Um, should you should you set a hard deadline on a relationship, right? And so this comes from a conversation I was having last night, with a friend, and he is going to ask this girl out, right? But we're seniors now, and the reality of being a senior is that if you want to play that game, right, to start like date a girl your senior year of high school, chances are you guys are gonna like it's not like obviously you guys are gonna graduate, right? um and so I'm of the opinion that you just like the moment you guys graduate, you set the hard deadline, it's over, right? No matter what, right, it's over. Frame one, the moment you graduate, right? And I think that this is the best alternative because um, because realistically, like you guys are gonna break up afterwards, anyways, right? So you might as well set that hard deadline there. So you guys both are going into it realizing that this is it, right? Instead of being like, oh, like what if we stay together after graduation, whatever, whatever. Realistically, it's not gonna happen, right? So you might as well be realistic, right, and say, okay, this is probably not gonna work out long term. It's probably gonna be over when we graduate, right? But if we're going into this and we think it's worth it for the next 4 months, right, until we graduate, 4 or 5 months until we graduate, we go into this knowing that the moment graduation hits, it's over, right? You guys can still be friends, but it's over. Like that relationship's over. Okay, and I'm of this perspective because I personally believe that um, that like because it's over regardless. I think that you might as well you might as well have that hard deadline so you guys both like realize it and it's like real, right? Like think about this. When you have a hard deadline and a soft deadline, right? You work a lot harder on that hard deadline than on the soft deadline, right? So instead of playing this like game of like, oh, like what if we stay together after graduation, you set that hard deadline for yourself and you tell yourself, the moment we graduate, it's over, right? And you go into it with that mentality. So every single moment, like you min max it, right? And I think this is a hard one. And I think that like you're you're better off doing that than like being like, oh, maybe we do, maybe we don't. Because because if you have a soft deadline and you're like, oh, maybe we stay together after graduation, right? Um, then I think it just won't be as like the relationship won't be as meaningful, right? Like to have that hard deadline, to treat it as like this 5 months, like we're gonna make the most of it, and it's over after that, right? No matter what. I think to some extent it's depressing, right? Because you're spending all this time all this time, effort, money maybe on this person, and you realize in 5 months there's an expiration date, right? And you might say like, why would I make an investment that I know is gonna zero out long term, right? But the reality of the situation is it doesn't zero out long term, right? Because like I think like your whole like you'll have that memory, like you'll hold on to that memory, right? So I don't necessarily think that it's like you're just like zeroed out, right? I think an innate value to it that is like there's an innate value to it, like there's an innate value to a relationship other than the length of it, right? Like it doesn't have to last forever to be meaningful, right? And my argument here is that it's more meaningful if it doesn't last forever, right? I think that if you have the hard deadline on it, you have that you go into it realizing that it's over after after this day, right? I think it's even more meaningful, right? Because it forces you guys to make the most out of every moment of the relationship, if that makes sense, right? And I'm of the opinion, right, that I'm short again. I'm short too. And I'm of the opinion that like because you're setting this hard deadline in it, every single moment in that relationship is more meaningful. So I think if you go into a relationship, you're senior of high school, you kind of know what you're signing up for, right? And to some extent, I think the healthiest way to do it is realizing that like okay, this is probably not going to go long term, but I still want to see where this takes me, right? And you go into it with that mentality. Um, so also it stops you from being hurt, right? Because you're going into it knowing that it's over after we graduate, right? So when you guys inevitably, I don't want to say inevitably, but when if you guys do like call it off after graduation, right, which is realistic here, then you're not as hurt, right? Um, like you're being pragmatic, right? You're doing like what's realistic. Um, but also, my friend was arguing that that like you'll regret it, right? Like in the back of your mind, there'll always be that what if, right? Like what if like this was the person. If you believe in soulmates, this was my soulmate, right? But this was a person I could spend the rest of my life or I could have I can spend the rest of my life with but instead I arbitrarily called it short, right? And I mean yeah, like that will nag at you, right? For sure. But I think like ultimately bro, what, how did I end up in this situation? Wait, no, I got it. Let's go. But I think ultimately like you'll come out the other side realizing like okay, like it's about expected value, right? Like this is some like statistic stuff, right? But it's about the expected value of it, right? Like um let's say you there's a 1% chance that you guys that this is the girl and that you guys are gonna make it through college and you guys are gonna get married, whatever, right? This is the girl for the rest of your life, right? 1% chance. Okay? It's a wife at a 1% chance or um or you call it off short and you come out like more filled and with a more meaningful relationship than if you guys were like whimper out, right? Because I feel like if you guys were whimper out, right? Like 2 months after graduation, you're like, oh, like this probably isn't gonna work out. I think we should just call it off mutually, right? I think it's less like I don't want to say romantic, but I guess in some extent it's less romantic. Also, I think it's just less meaningful, right? I think like the relationship just like it goes down and then whimpers out, right? So basically, you're making a gamble, right? If you stay in the relationship, you have a 1% chance at a wife, right, or someone for the rest of your life, right? In your case, a wife, or you have a 99% chance at it whimpering out, right? So would you rather take a 99% chance at a lower floor? Sorry, would you rather take a 99% chance at a higher floor and a lower ceiling, or would you take a 99? Okay, maybe just a 99% chance, right? You have a if you take the stay with, right, you have a 99% chance of it whimpering out, which is the lowest possible floor, but you also have the highest possible ceiling, right? Obviously a wife, right? Um, but a 99% chance, right? So this is way like significantly down, right? Or do you take the 100% chance at like ending it on like a high note, right? Like ending it while you guys both still want to be with it to some extent, like like it like that realization that like in the back of your head that like what could have been, right? It's a double edged sword, right? To some extent, you might regret it for the rest of your life, right? Thinking like what could have been, right? Maybe you get married, and maybe right before you get married, you start getting cold feet, like people do, and you're like, what if, right? Like, what if that from 20 years ago was the person I could have spent the rest of my life with, right? Because you ended on such a high note, right? So your last impression is like such a high note. But like yeah, like that there will always be that lingering thing. But also it's a double edged sword, right? Because ending on the high note means that forever you'll have a more fond memory of that experience, right? Which makes those that time spent together more meaningful, right? So really, like that's the trade off you're gonna make, right? You don't take the risk and you play it safe and you take the higher expected value, or you take the 1% and you bet on it, right? And taking the 1% also gives you more agency, right? But at the same time, I think like statistically speaking, the relationship is gonna whimper out. So why wouldn't you just take the safer option, right? Like that's all I'm saying, right? So basically, what it comes down to is that like you can chase that fantasy, right? And sometimes miracles happen, right? Um, and yeah, like obviously, if a miracle happens, then great, right? But like if you're being realistic, it won't, right? And you might as well want to end it on the highest note possible, right? So it's a matter of would you and then like okay, so like for me, logically speaking, right? I think the logical thing to do is like let's say like Valentine's Day, right? I don't even know when Valentine's Day is. That's how bad it is, right? That's how low play I get. But Valentine's Day, whatever, that's the 16th probably, right? That sounds right. Um, Holy shit, I can't spell. What even is this? It's the 14th. I lied. The 14th. So, the 14th, right? All went to graduate, which is sometime in June. So it's March, like February to March, March to April, April to May, May to June, June and July, 5 months. So you have less than half a year, right? A little south of half a year, to make the most out of this relationship, right? And obviously that means like prom and whatever that comes with senior year, right? Basically, right? That's what you're signing up for, right? You're signing up um for I guess the companionship, I guess is the word, or like you're signing up for whatever like you define a relationship as for 5 months, and in exchange you cut it off the moment you graduate. Save both of yourselves the pain, and move on with your lives, right? And I think like if you take the expected value, right? You do the Kelly criterion. I'm just spamming fucking words at this point, and you look at the yield curve, right? You'll realize the highest yield is at the safer option. The safer option has the highest yield, right? The highest expected yield, because uh, expected value. It's right, it's this idea of like, would you take okay, like if you have if I say okay, you flip a coin for either $10 or $100, or you just take $30 upright, right, or $40 upright. You do the way you calculate this is you do 0.5 here, right? 0.5 here, and you do what am I doing? And you do times 100.5. I'm just showing you. I obviously know how to do it. It's 55. Okay. Um, am I slow? Oh, I'm retarded. It's plus. What is happening? 55, right? Obviously, I knew how to do it. I just showing you, right? Or you take $50, right? The wise option here is to take this coin flip, right? because there's a higher expected value. If you were to flip a coin a million times, right, and you total up the sum of all your winnings, you will have more money than if you just took that $50 every time. That's the idea, right? So because because taking because playing the safer option here has the higher expected value, right? Like there's no way you're telling me like like the permanent relationship, the wife, right, is worth 99 times, more than 99 times the value, the difference, the value of the difference of the of ending the relationship on a higher note, right? Like you subtract that margin, right, and you multiply that by 99 times, right? Is that like 99 times is just a big number. I don't necessarily think you can say it's worth a wife, right? So whatever, right? Take that expected value. The correct decision, right, is to to call it off, right? The moment you graduate, it's over, right? But humans aren't like humans have emotions, and emotions aren't logical, right? Because I promise you, right, if you decide to call it off, right before, like the moment you graduate, that last week is gonna be bro, you will be in the trenches, okay? Like you will be in a trench so deep, like it's incomparable to the trench you'll be in, 2 weeks down the line when you decide to break up after like 2 weeks after graduation, right? Like mutually, like when you decide that, right? If you choose to like stay it out, but because the low was so low, the high after it, when you look back on it, that low makes the high like it's only such a low because the high is such a high, right? Like if you take a sine wave, right? You can't if you have a really low, you always have a really high, right? Assuming like the sine wave is like not like shifted along the y axis, right? Um or the z axis too. That also works. If you're trying 3 dimensions. But but the point is, right? The point is that because like because mathematically mathematically the right choice is to just call it off after graduation. It doesn't feel right? Like even though we can say that like even I can say that the smart thing to do is to just graduation is over, right? I know for a fact, right, that you are like anybody is gonna end up pussying out of the deal, right? Because at the back of your mind there's always that what if, right? And hope is the strongest drug known to mankind, right? So the question is, right, do you so is this a good idea, right? Do you go into this relationship being like 5 months over, or do you just go into it the entire time? All right. Do you go into it the entire time accepting that that it's just whatever, right? And and I think that even though I can sit here and tell you that I wouldn't take the I wouldn't sign the Faustian Pact, right? Um, well, I'm sorry, I would sign the Faustian Pact. Um, that when push comes to shove, I don't know if I have the willpower to go through with it, right? Um, and I think that goes for a lot of people, right? And I think like the reality of the situation is that like the reality of the situation um is that like every equation like in reality has those those factors, right? The what's the word? Why am I blanking on it? The intangibles, right? And every like in reality things are never so complicated, and there's intangibles, right? And um and regardless of what's logical, we don't necessarily always make the logical decision, right? And there's a degree of morality that is inherently rooted in like human emotion, if that makes sense, right? Like like a lot of what we like everybody understands is immoral or moral isn't necessarily the greatest amount of good, right? Like the classic example is if a healthy person walks into the hospital, should they have to don't like as a doctor would you harvest all five of their organs to save five people, right? And and even though on like as if you boil it down to if five is greater than one, you should harvest those organs. Almost everyone will tell you should not harvest those organs. Why? Because there's an intangible, right? Human feeling is not always inherently logical, and I promise you, when you get down to that last week, right, the last 2 weeks maybe, you will be acting illogical, right? And I know you'll be acting illogical because I literally just talked to a friend, right? That's a completely different thing. I literally talked to a friend that just messaged his ex, right? They broke up like half a year ago, basically begging for her to take him back, right? He was on some fucking, it was bad, bro. It was bad. He was on some like, oh, I miss you so much. Like, I know your relationship, and I know you won't read this type shit. Like, it was bad. Okay, like it was so like illogical, and I told myself I would stop saying this word, but it was so, like, for lack of a better word, retarded, right? It was so bad. And like the fact of the matter is that like I believe that like there's also there's something intangible to that, right? And I think just the self determination, right? If you want to call it the ability to determine whether you guys stay in a relationship is could be worth more than than the marginal increase in like how fondly you remember it, right? And like realistically it won't work out, right? 2 weeks after graduation you call it quits because you realize one of you guys is going to Tufts in Atlanta, Georgia, and the other one is going to Boston College, right, in Boston. And GG's, right? But the reality situation is that like or sorry, Emory is in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm bugging. Tufts is in Boston. What the fuck am I saying? One of you guys is going to Emory and the other one is going to Tufts, right? And and while you know that it won't work out, something there hope is the most illogical, is the most absurd drug like known to humankind, right? And you will end up sticking through that relationship because that's just what people do, right? And and yeah, I think I've come like the conclusion I've come to of whether you should set a hard deadline on a relationship, right, is that while I think it having a hard deadline makes every moment more meaningful, right? There's something intangible to that hope, right? That what if, right? Even though expected value might tell you otherwise, right? Human emotion dictates that you go through with it, right? That you stay with the girl after graduation, and um and you see how it goes, right? And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, right? But the reality of the situation is that um just just having that what if, right? Like I guess you'd rather end it on a lower low than than having that what if for the rest of your life, right? Like the closure there is worth more than any expected value graph could tell you, or any yield curve. Um, so yeah, that's my conclusion. Although I think if like okay, like a big if, right? If someone were to be like oh, we should like like if someone asked me out on a date or whatever, and it's went further than that, right? Big if, right? Big if. Um, but if that were to happen, right? I think I would go into it. Um, I don't think I would set a hard deadline because I think, yeah, I think that that what if is more is stronger than any yield curve will ever tell you, right? And I think, um, yeah, that's basically it. Um, and this is another one of many actually, where human logic once again comes a little short, right? Because um, for one reason or another, emotion will always triumph logic, especially when it's your dick acting, right? Especially, right? It's fucking. Why would you text her, bro? Like, but yeah, yeah. I think. Also, by the way, whenever I talk shit about people, like I also say they're retarded to their face, right? Like this is. I'm not just talking shit by the back. Like also, this is public YouTube videos. Um, and I know the guy knows my YouTube channel too, so I mean, he's fucking. Yeah, he knows. I think he's an idiot, but now he knows he's an idiot too. But they were like they both were like these two guys were telling me like oh like 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 you'll know once you get into a relationship like whatever like that 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 you have people have a tendency to act stupid in relationships, right? So there we have it. Um, this is whoa, this is a horrible guess. Um, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on the question. Um, and yeah, I mean, I feel I feel like although like although it will at the end of the day be more meaningful, like it will be a degree more uh it'll be to a degree more meaningful if you guys decide to call it quits, and you'll always remember it fondly, right? You'll always remember the relationship. Like again, remembering is a what if is of like that's a very fond memory, right? But um but yeah, like sometimes that's the word. Sometimes logic just fails. And and that closure I think means a lot to people. Evidently so. By my friend. And yeah. But like obviously this is all hypothetical and this has never seen practical application in my life because nothing's happening my senior year. But it is what it is. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. My advice for my friend, right? So I agree with him. I agree with him. I think you go into the relationship with the expectation that this will be this will be your wife instead of speedrunning it. Because I feel like if you speedrun it like you like that like speedrunning it will be a time in your life and you will remember it very fondly, right? But then because it's such a high though the lows would be so low, like the Mandalorian. And I think at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? And um and yeah. So the real answer is just don't date in your senior year. There's 8 billion other girls in the world, and I'm sure you'll find one in college. The college with like 20,000 kids that you're applying to. Um, and yeah, that's my 2 cents. And there's plenty of baddies in the world. So don't date your senior. That's my 2 cents. Not Coke. All right, bye.